on the revenue that counties are getting. So we are telling CRA that their formula could only make sense if and only if that formula is applied to the current money that counties are getting, which is 387 billion, then no county loses. That's what is supposed to be the base year, including Migori County, which if you apply that formula that they are proposed into the current revenue that we are getting from national government, my county alone loses 200 million.
This is to ensure that no county gets less than what they were allocated in the previous year, which is this year of 2024-2025. You will see later that no county gets less than what they were allocated in the year 2024-2025 because of the stabilization factor. No county loses. No county.
Right, moving on, President William Ruto has castigated those opposed to livestock vaccination program, but the government terming them as fools. The president spoke in Garissa County during his 4-day working trip of the northeastern, saying the plan targets 8 million livestock. The president's trip of the northern Kenya entered its 3rd day yesterday.
Wewe unaenda kumsikiza mtu ya kupanda ndengu, ati anakuambia usichanje ng'ombe yako. Yeye hana ng'ombe. Wewe utafuata hiyo maneno ya mtu ya? Na wewe umekuwa ukichanja ng'ombe yako miaka hii yote. Alafu mtu akuja hapo na Kiingereza na Kiswahili kingine akwambia ati usichanje ng'ombe yako. Ati kuna mtu mwingine sijui anaitwa Bill Gates sijui nani. Bill Gates ako wapi hapa Garissa? Kuna Bill Gates hapa Garissa? Si hii ng'ombe ni ng'ombe yetu. Si hawa madaktari ni madaktari wetu. Si hii dawa tumetoa hapa Kabete. Sasa Bill Gates anaingilia wapi hapa ndani? Hiyo ni mambo ya upumbavu na wakwende kabisa. Na mkiona wale wanalalamika ni watu sijui wamesomea wapi. Si mimi niko na PhD. Si mimi naelewa nini inaendelea Kenya. Sasa mimi napata watu wengine wako na elimu kidogo kidogo wanajaribu kunifundisha. Mnanifundisha kazi gani?
All right, I don't know what you make of that. Someone holding a PhD and then calling the others who don't have the PhD fools. Right? Moving on, Kenya's Attorney General Dorcas Oduor has assured Kenyans of government's commitment towards reconstitution of IEBC. Oduor says the speed in which the government gazetted the committee that will appoint IEBC commissioners after courts lifted the stay orders against appointment of the committee should be treated as a sign of state's commitment to reconstitute the electoral body. She is therefore urging Kenyans to apply for their advertised positions and not just make noise on other side of the fence.
When you talk about urgency, depends on what you're talking about. I think the government is committed to have the IBC reconstituted and operationalized as soon as possible, and you have seen from the action of the government. Immediately, there was a court case that stayed the act of the action of the president from gazetting the committee that was going to appoint IEBC commissioners. Immediately, that stay was uplifted. We went ahead and gazetted the committee. The committee has already advertised. I hope you have applied so that you be part of it, because you cannot always complain when you are outside. Now we have an advert. All Kenyans are open to apply. Please apply, go for the interview so that you can speak from inside, because there is an opportunity for all of us to be part of it.
All right, moving on, Kilifi County Steering Group, the CSG stakeholders have issued a warning about an impending hunger crisis in the county. The lack of sufficient rainfall has affected food availability and access to the residents, leaving thousands vulnerable at a risk of malnutrition. Urgent interventions and support are needed to address the situation and ensure that the residents of Kilifi County receive the assistance they require to survive this challenging period. Destiny Mbada now reports.
The county steering group, comprising of the county and national governments and non-governmental organization officials, warned that the hunger crisis situation could deteriorate further if urgent interventions are not implemented in the hardest hit areas. Kilifi County Commissioner Josephat Biwott, who chairs the CSG, confirmed that the severity of the looming crisis, revealing that maize harvest in the past season amounted to less than 33% of normal yields.
Short rains ile ilipita tumekuwa na below average na production yetu ilikuwa chini sana, hata hatukupikisha. Kwa mfano mambo ya mahindi, it was less than 33% ile harvest walipata. So tumekaa na tukaangalia kwa umakini upande wa maji. Tumeona kwamba ile maji iko sasa itapakisha tu in the next 1 or 2 months itakuwa imeisha, especially on the areas of Kansa, Kaloleni na Magarini.
Josephat Biwott further stated that the water and food shortages have already intensified in Ganze, Kaloleni and Magarini sub-counties, where some areas have completely run dry. While some parts of Kilifi County, such as Kilifi South, Kilifi North and Rabai, are less affected, Biwott emphasized that relief efforts will be prioritized for the most vulnerable areas.
Na tukiongea hivi, kuna pahali Magarini yenye hawana maji kabisa. Unaona hiyo water pans yote imeisha. So tumekaa chini kama committee wa steering group na tumekuja na njia nzuri sana jinsi ya tutakaa chini tuone vile tutasaidia watu wetu wa Kilifi kwa upande wa, tumeangalia maji, tumeangalia upande wa chakula, hata tumeangalia upande wa nutrition. Kwa sababu sisi wote tuko hapa, it's cutting across almost 5 or 6 sectors. Mpaka upande wa masomo ya wanafunzi. Tumeangalia hayo yote na tumeonelea kwamba lazima tukae tayari kwanza kuona kwamba hakuna mwenye atakuwa na shida kwa upande wa chakula.
The National Drought Management Authority Kilifi County Coordinator Bakari Mwachakure attributed the growing food insecurity to unpredictable and insufficient rainfall caused by the climate change. He underscored the need for sustainable water management strategies such as constructing climate-resilient dams to store water and support irrigation farming. Kenya Red Cross Kilifi County Coordinator Kautha Lawi highlighted the need for interventions, citing reports from Health, Education and Livestock departments that indicated deteriorating conditions.
Tatizo hili la ukame ama ukosefu wa chakula ambayo tunasema ni food insecurity kwa sasa hivi limechangiwa na compounded effects ya failure ya misimu miwili iliyopita, mvua za mwaka jana na vuli ya mwaka jana, which is the long range assessment ya 2024 na long range season ya 2024 na short range season ya 2024. Kwa hivyo kufikia sasa ni kwamba uhitaji umeenda juu, na hata ile mvua ambayo tulipata, kwa sababu iko mabawa kadha wa kadha sehemu hizo za Ganze, Kaloleni, vile ambavyo tumeambiwa hizo ndio sehemu zina uhitaji zaidi, zilipata mvua kidogo, isipokuwa mvua zenyewe zilikuwa za mabato, what we call erratic rains. Mvua zile zinanyesha kwa ghafla, zinajaza mabawa, alafu mvua inapotea.
According to county rankings based on livestock, agriculture, education and malnutrition levels, Ganze is the most affected sub-county in terms of food insecurity, followed by Kaloleni, Magarini, Rabai, Kilifi South and Kilifi North. With the next rains expected to arrive late between the 1st and 2nd week of April and forecasting indicating below average rainfall, the next 2 months could be particularly difficult for residents.
The cost there is about 7 million. Most of the farmers did not pay.
Destiny Mbada reporting for EBN TV.
All right, moving on. The cabinet has formally approved Kenya's concessional paper on foreign policy, paving its way for the parliamentary leg of its process. According to Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Musalia Mudavadi, Parliament, which opens from recess next week, will open the paper for further public scrutiny through debates and contributions from other stakeholders.
Formally, the Cabinet of Kenya has now approved the sessional paper on diplomacy and given the go-ahead for it to be tabled in Parliament, which will happen next week when Parliament reopens, so that it goes through the first reading, and then it will be available for further conversation and debate by a wider cross-section of the Kenyan people and our partners. This time, we are making it clear that diplomacy is not an exclusive club. We want diplomacy mashinani. We want the people to understand what is our policy across various issues, and we want them to engage so that it is no longer a mystery that diplomats are seen carrying a briefcase into a plane, and then they are seen coming back, and they assumed that they were just having a cocktail somewhere. Let us share in reality what is all this diplomacy about.
And more victims of first choice recruitment and consultancy Kenya fraud continue to file reports with police in Eldoret claiming to have been swindled millions of shillings. The agency had recruited thousands of youth whom they claim to have secured jobs abroad for them during World Cup, as most of them had paid thousands of fees to transport expecting to travel for better payments abroad. They claim for 3 years they are yet to travel, saying their efforts to get back their money, which they claimed after failing to travel, has not been fruitful for more than 2 years. They want the government to intervene since they sold their properties for the promising new jobs abroad, which up to now they have not been able to travel.
Mwaka wa 2023 ilikuwa twende na baadaye hakutupeleka tena. Ikabidi sasa anaanza kutuzungusha na tuambia next month, next year, hivyo mpaka sasa hivi bado hatujarudishiwa pesa. Na pesa yenye nimempea ni 160,000. Na hiyo 160,000 alituambia ni pesa ya agency ingine bado ilikuwa ni ya visa. Hiyo ndio pesa yenye tulilipa 160,000. Kuuliza pesa anatupea hopes ya kuna anatuambia next week I'm going to refund you the money or niwashughulikie. Na baadaye yako tushughulikia.
Imekuwa muda sana tukiongoja ya kazi ya Judy first choice. Bali tuaite 2023 ya kwamba ametutafutia kazi nje ya Kenya. Tumeongoja kwa hiyo muda yote ya tukimjaribu kumuulizia anasema next week mtaenda or next month. Tumesubiri tu hiyo miaka yote mpaka 2 years sasa imeisha, na hatuone kama kuna option yote yenye atasa tufanyia ya kazi.
Tulikuwa ya World Cup kwanza, sasa akatuambia tunalipa pesa 150,000 ndio 22 years contract. Sasa after that tunafanya interview, anatuambia tumekuja msign offer letter, tuna sign. Kumbe alafu anatuambia tungoje. Tunangoja after 1 month anatuita tena interview. Tunangoja na hata 1 month interview. Sasa mimi ningeomba tu waturudishe pesa yetu.
Wale investigative agencies wasaidie hao vijana wapate haki yao kwa upesi.
Now, despite efforts to maintain dialogue, including consultations between the facilitator, President Tshisekedi of DRC, and the M23 leadership, the political and security landscape in the DRC became increasingly...
Right, quite unfortunate story right there. Parents are struggling to get the money to send their kids to abroad, and their money has swindled. Right, moving on. Former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta has called for expeditious peace talks between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo amid escalating wars in eastern DRC. Through his spokesperson Kanzi Dina, Kenyatta has, as the facilitator of the EAC-led Nairobi process, noted there is an urgent need for renewed peace talks between the warring states. The EAC-led Nairobi process is a regional peace initiative aimed at resolving the conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. He also noted that an earlier ceasefire negotiated was dishonored, slowing down peace and diplomatic negotiations agreed in the peace process.
Unstable. Following the December 2023 elections in the DRC, the formation of a new government delayed the resumption of the Nairobi process. While engagements with key stakeholders continued, the lack of political momentum coupled with renewed hostilities in North Kivu and South Kivu has significantly undermined the progress made between the year 2022 and 2023. The M23, once subject to a cease agreement, has now regained control over key towns, including Goma, and fighting has once again escalated across the region. The Nairobi peace process, though temporarily sidelined, remains a critical framework for dialogue and conflict resolution in the eastern DRC. The facilitator remains committed to finding pathways to peace in collaboration with the government of DRC, regional partners, and international stakeholders. However, the recent resurgence of hostilities highlights the urgent need for renewed political will, regional cooperation, and sustained support for peace efforts to avoid further deterioration of the security situation in DRC.
Right, moving on, the withdrawal of USAID funding by the United States is a national crisis which must be addressed quickly and diplomatically by the national government and the Council of Governors, says Makueni Governor Mutula Kilonzo Jr. Speaking in Wote Town, Governor Mutula Jr. said some health facilities depended on the funding might close down. He slammed retired President Uhuru Kenyatta for his recent remarks on the funding, saying the former president should have advised so when he was still in office.
A huge population in all these counties is dependent on these drugs, and I am extremely worried that in the absence of those drugs we're going to start losing people. The stigma that had gone away will come back, and more importantly for me, and because of the statistics I have seen in Makueni, teenage infections between the age of 24 and 35 have increased tremendously, and therefore this admission of these drugs, the continuous counseling, because that is part of the team, is very critical. The Council of Governors have had a discussion, and I hope that that discussion can be fast-tracked very quickly to national level, because 54,000 Kenyans are going to lose jobs. And a host of hospitals, some in Makueni, will most likely close because they are losing up to 10 members of staff or nurses that were under the American program. I have seen serious protests in the US today by both Republicans and Democrats on matters US aid. Those Republicans and Democrats senators are saying that they are the ones to dictate how their taxes should be spent. And if, like one of the Republicans who was mentioned, that she was a refugee and was a beneficiary of US aid. I mean, if they are saying that, we should speak even louder and say that it is against human rights to withdraw such services without. And I think that the national government ought to find a method, a diplomatic method, with the President of America and the American administration to have a transition. That transition will save lives, and that transition will give us an opportunity as a country to find another method. I disagree entirely with President Uhuru Kenyatta, because if that was his thought when he was president of Kenya, he should have said so when he was president. He can't say so when he's out of office, and he left us with all these deals. These deals were done when he was in office, and therefore he can't laugh at us, because I think the president was laughing at us, and he was laughing at people he used to serve. The people who are being assisted and are alive because of the antiretroviral drugs since 1990. We can't laugh at them, and I've seen them. So this is a matter of concern.
Right, moving on to some unfortunate story right now, and 3 people have perished in an accident at the Masinga market on the Bungoma-Webuye highway, while the survivors are continuing to receive treatment at the Webuye County Hospital. According to the medical superintendent of Webuye Referral Hospital, Dr. David Wanikina, the hospital received 9 wounded, with one of them dying at arrival. Confirming the case, OCPD of Bungoma South, James Odera, has asked the drivers to be careful on the highways, as he confirmed the death of the 3 in the accident. The bodies of the 3 have been preserved at the Webuye Referral Hospital morgue.
Kwa hai tukawasaidia, wakaenda kwa magari, wakawapeleka kwa hospitali, lakini wawili, mtoto na mtu mkubwa, waliaga dunia.
Hapa mahali petu pako risk kwa sababu kila jioni tunasikia watu wanapiga nduru huko nje. Uokoaji wa usiku umekuwa ni mchache.
Sura wengine, mmoja ako katika hali mahututi na tunaendelea kumhudumia, na kuna wagonjwa wawili ambao wanahitaji upasuaji ambao pia tunawashughulikia wapate kupata huduma. Wale wagonjwa wengine wote wako katika hali salama na tunaendelea kuwahudumia ili wapate nafuu.
Kama ilikuwa inaendeshwa mwendo wa kasi, kwanza ikapata ajali, na wakati huo mimi kama ofisa wa hii area naomba wenye wanatumia barabara, aswa madrivers, wakati wanaendesha magari wahakikishe wanaenda kwa ile mwendo ambaye wanaweza kudhibiti gari kwa njia ambayo inayofaa wakati ajali inapotokea.
Right, quite unfortunate story right there, and indeed the drivers need to be careful. Our condolences to the family and friends of the deceased. Moving on, as the world observed the International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation, Meru County played host to a key event amid rising cases of gender-based violence in the region. Gender Secretary Anne Wangombe and her counterpart, the Parliamentary Affairs Secretary Aurelia Rono, have expressed deep concern over the increasing FGM cases. They emphasized that the government is taking firm action through a newly established commission tasked with addressing gender-based violence. Reports indicate that FGM has surged in Igembe and Tigania areas of Meru County 3 years after Kenya celebrated the supposed eradication of the practice in 2022.
And we have made progress. According to statistics, in 2014 we were at 21%, but as per 2022 we are now at 15%. We are expecting that the statistics will go lower than that, but we are sad to announce that there has been some resurgence of female genital mutilation in the central region. And as government, we are determined to curb it.
We are here to sensitize each other, to help our young people understand the effect of this harmful practice that is FGM, and we try and see how we eradicate it completely in our country.
All right, moving on, the former CS for Sports, Rashid Echesa, and the chairman of the Union of Former Mumias Sugar Factory Employees, Patrick Mutimba, now want the owner of the West Kenya Sugar Company, Jaswa, try to revive the ethanol and electricity production machinery in the Mumias Factory Sugar to create employment for the residents of the area after an order by President William Ruto. The two have slammed the investor of Mumias Sugar, Sabjit Sarai, claiming that he has prevented the revival of the machinery. They claim that he failed with the management of the Mumias factory, therefore he should close and leave and make way for another investor. HSR has emphasized that the Rai is the owner of those two machinery, therefore he is investigating legally as ordered by President William Ruto.
Rai akuje hata kesho, akuja afungue hiyo distillery na afungue cogen. Si ndio jameni? Ndio vijana wetu wapate ajira. Mama zetu wapate ajira. Si hivyo jameni? Ama nyinyi mnasemaje? Na tunaambia Sarai, wewe uliletwa hapa na Kenya Commercial Bank kusiaga sukari. Kama sukari imekushinda, wewe shika barabara, enda, wacha investor mwingine atafungua hiyo kampuni, atusiagie sukari.
Ethanol na cogen ni mali ya Rai. Kwa hivyo hakuna mtu yeyote tutakubali akataze mwenye viwanda kuja kufanya kazi hapa. Rai alinunua ethanol na cogen na mali yake. Kwa hivyo tunasema hivi, wanasiasa haswa governor wa Kakamega na MCS, tunawaambia hivi, kama Rai hata kuja kufungua mtambo wa ethanol na cogen, kama Rai hata kuja kufungua mtambo wa ethanol na cogen, Sarai anakanyaga frame. Sarai afanye nini? Sarai afanye nini?
Watoto tumesomesha, hawana kazi, wanahangaika. Watoto wetu wanachukua pikipiki zikiwaua barabarani.
Sisi maisha watu wa Mumias hatutaki kutegemea miwa peke yake. Tunataka Rai akuje vile amepewa kazi ya cogen na ethanol akuje afungue hapa. Kwa sababu ako na uwezo. Sarai wakati amekuja Mumias, kama angekuwa na uwezo, amemaliza miaka 3 Mumias, angekuwa amefungua cogen, amefungua ethanol. Hii vita ambayo wanatuletea sisi wananchi wa Mumias hatutaki. Wanataka kutuletea umaskini hapa Mumias na sisi hatutaki.
Kwa hivyo naomba rais wetu, sisi tunakaribisha yule mwekezaji ambaye anaitwa Rai, ambaye amenunua ethanol, ambaye amenunua cogen. Tunataka rais waamurishe viwanda vyote ambao molasses zinamwagika ikuje hapa itengeneze pombe ili vijana wetu wapate kazi ili nchi yetu iendelee mbele.
Huyu muhindi mwenye anafanya hapa Mumias Sugar Company saizi heri haende kwa sababu hajaajiri hata mtu mmoja. Na iwapo ninadanganya leo, nataka mtu mmoja kwa huo au muhadhara atokee aonyeshe hii ni barua niliajiriwa nayo. Hakuna mtu yoyote muhindi mwenye ako saizi ameajiri mtu hapa.
Right, moving on, Baringo Public Service Board has come to sharp criticism from members of the County Assembly and the general public after being accused of selling job placements and recruiting unqualified staff with fake certificates. The MCAs were speaking during the Baringo Leadership Summit, which seeks to strengthen leadership and improve governance. According to Baringo Deputy Governor Felix Kipngok, among every 5 employees, 2 had fake certificates, questioning how this could have bypassed the board responsible for employment. The board has also been accused of selling job placements in the recent recruitment in the Ministry of Agriculture. Right, at that note, we take a short commercial break. When we come back, we're going to tell you what exactly are happening across the country in matters newspaper review. Do stay with us. William Ruto started his tour to the northern region of Kenya, and elders from Mandera and Nairobi have held meetings to initiate fundraising for the 5 abducted on Monday. And of course, that particular story can get it on page 2. And Al-Shabaab militants who kidnapped 5 local chiefs from the Mandera County have demanded a ransom of 7 million Kenya shillings. The kidnapping, which occurred on February 3rd, a day before President William Ruto arrived in Mandera, sent shockwaves through the community and prompted a race against time by local elders to raise the required funds, while simultaneously urging the government to intervene. The 5 chiefs that include Mohammed Abdawa, Mohammed Hassan, Mohammed Noor, Assistant Chief Ibrahim Gabo, Senior Chief Abdi Sarwa were on their way to Elwak for fiscal duties when their vehicle was intercepted by the suspected militants near Iresuki village. And you remember, President Ruto actually talked about this particular situation, saying that the chiefs will be back. We wonder how. The elders now from the Mandera are raising money to at least pay the ransom to the suspected abductees who are believed to be Al-Shabaab. It's so worrying that a government critique can be found in just a day. But when the chiefs are abducted, it takes years, right? Major twist as Uhuru's party backs Matiang'i. The county's political landscape is headed for a major twist after Jubilee Party endorsed former Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i as its 2027 presidential flag bearer. The party, led by former President Uhuru Kenyatta, resolved a meeting on Wednesday that Matiang'i will be their man to take on President William Ruto come 2027. Of course, that particular story can get it on page 4 of the Star newspaper and continues to say, the country's political landscape is headed for a major twist after Jubilee Party endorsed former Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Fred Matiang'i, in the 2027 presidential election. The party, led by former President Uhuru Kenyatta, resolved a meeting on Wednesday that Matiang'i will be their man to take on President William Ruto for the country's top job. The Kenyatta's family backing on Matiang'i could complicate the race for Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who have both been angling for Uhuru's support. Citing what he said was Matiang'i's track record, Jubilee Deputy Party leader Joseph Manje told the Star the CS was chosen during the party's meeting on Wednesday. Let's take a look on the big shots in the 2027 race for president. We have Rigathi Gachagua, that is the former deputy president, and the second deputy president, Fred Matiang'i, former Interior CS, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, DAPK leader, NARC Kenya leader Martha Karua, Okiya Omtata, Busia Senator, and activist Bob Njagi. And of course, those are the 2027 big shots for the presidential election. And the former ruling party, of course, outfit that it's backing Matiang'i's presidential bid in 2027 against President William Ruto. Moving on, audit red flags. 6 billion Kenya shillings spent on Adani type deals. And some 6 billion shillings the government borrowed to manage public-private partnership projects better may have gone down the drain. A new audit has cast doubt on whether taxpayers got a value of money in the billions spent to facilitate Adani-type deals that never materialized. And Uhuru blames expulsion of troops for DRC crisis. Of course, that's a story that we have taken a look at during our news morning drift. And there is a picture there of health workers transfer bodies of victims of M23 in Goma, Democratic Republic of Congo. That picture, of course, that particular story can get it on page 6 of the Star newspaper. Moving on to the Daily Nation. And secret keepers of Ruto, Kenyatta's and Moi empires continues to say, of course, there is a picture actually there of President William Ruto, Raila Odinga, and former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And it continues to say, revealed that they are reclusive and their jobs descriptions require them to remain discreet in both their professional and personal lives, lest they attract unwarranted attention to their employees' affairs. And yet they hold the keys to investment vehicles. They are with assets and cash worth billions. For some East Africa's wealthiest and most politically influential families, along with businesses as well as domestic secrets that keep the multi-billion shilling empires revving amid the trusted confidence of Kenya's foremost political families. That particular story is actually on page 10. It's actually depicting a picture of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto, Raila Odinga, and so on. And 16 billion Kenya shillings looted through ghost workers in counties, audit say. Counties spent 15.8 billion Kenya shillings paying non-existent workers in the 2023-2024 financial year. Control of budget, Margaret Nyakango has revealed, speaking in Naivasha at the ongoing midterm retreat for senators. Dr. Nyakango said the money was not proceeded through an integrated financial management information system as required by the law, meaning the payments were proceeded or rather processed manually to avoid scrutiny by auditors. Of course, that's a story, you can get it on page 14 of Daily Nation. And Aga Khan funeral set for tomorrow. Aga Khan was born in 1936 and died 2025. The funeral ceremony of His Highness Prince Karim Al Hussaini Aga Khan the fourth will take place tomorrow at the Ismaili Center in Lisbon, Portugal. The ceremony, which starts at 11 a.m., will be open only for invited guests, including members of the Aga Khan family, leaders of the global Ismaili community and the Aga Khan Development Network, international dignitaries, officials of the Portuguese government and state authorities. Of course, that particular story, you can get it on page 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And on to page 3 of course, the Daily Nation, there is a picture there of Aga Khan with President Yoweri Museveni, who paid courtesy call to the State House at Entebbe in 2011. His Highness, the Aga Khan, was in Uganda for a review for the Aga Khan Development Network projects, including a visit to Bujagali Power Dam. And there is also a picture there of His Highness Aga Khan and Canada's Prime Minister Stephen Harper with a model of Ismaili Center and Aga Khan Museum for Islamic Art and Culture and the park during the foundation ceremony in Toronto on May 28th of 2010. Britain's Prince Charles with Aga Khan there during a visit to the Ismaili Center to join a reception to celebrate their 25th anniversary in London, November 18th of 2010. Of course, it goes on and on and on. Aga Khan with top dignitaries in the globe. Of course, Aga Khan was a highly respected man and a man with influence. Aga Khan saw media as catalyst for development. It continues to say, it is hard to fathom the powerhouse we are now on as a nation media group, originated from humble weekly Kiswahili newspaper called Taifa. And of course, you remember Aga Khan was actually the one of the founder members of the nation media group. Continues to say, His Highness, the Aga Khan, who passed away on Tuesday at the age of 88, had taken a break from studies in the U.S. in 1957 to visit East Africa as he prepared to assume the mantle of Imam of the Ismaili Muslims following the death of his grandfather. At just 20, he sensed the gathering storm that would change the African political landscape. As Gary Loran notes in the book, The Birth of a Nation, Story of Newspaper in Kenya, His Highness was already looking beyond the ceremonial and pondering the future in East Africa independence he believed was inevitable. Loran, a pioneering editor in the nation's stables, notes that during the enthronement toward of East Africa, the Aga Khan took note of a comment from his press advisor Michael Curtis regarding the abysmal quality of newspapers in Kenya and Uganda, old British Empire places where the papers were seemingly the mouthpieces of the colonial government that seemed to have planted a seed in his mind which would germinate incredibly fast. Of course, that particular story of Aga Khan, you can get it on page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the Daily Nation. Our condolences to the family and friends of Aga Khan. Of course, Aga Khan was not only in the media, of course, he was also having hospitals, educational facilities, and economic development across Africa. Rest in peace, Prince Karim Aga Khan. Moving on, court outlaws police chiefs ban on protest. That's the story, you can get it on the back page of the Daily Nation. Right, moving on to the Standard newspaper dated 7th of February 2025. And President William Ruto makes headlines in the Standard saying, "You can't teach me." Continues to say, being a scientist with a PhD to boot, President William Ruto has told off critics of the livestock vaccine program that on the matter he knows more than they do, so they should shut up. Of course, that particular story, you can take a look at it on page 4 of the Daily Nation. And President William Ruto appeared to stoke debate with his choice of words after he took a swipe at individuals he did not name opposing his government program, yet their education levels does not match his. Speaking in Garissa during his tour on the northern eastern region, Ruto, in response to running criticism against his livestock vaccination program launched on January 30th, said his understanding of the program cannot be challenged by lesser educated critics. Addressing hundreds of residents within Garissa town near the famous Sug Mugdi market, Ruto said his government will pay for the vaccines to ensure livestock in the country are free of diseases. He said diseases in livestock undermine the country's push of selling more beef in East Africa and international markets. Right, I don't know what you make of that, because the livestock have been there in the recent governments. We have the recent governments of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, former President and the late Mwai Kibaki, President Moi, and President Jomo Kenyatta. This thing was not there, and I feel like it's kind of the farmer's choice to choose whether his livestock should be vaccinated. It should not be a must-do thing. Of course, I don't know what to make of that. President William Ruto says he knows more than you do because he's holding a PhD. Moving on, Odhiambo is a tall order. Odhiambo still missing. Of course, that political story, can get it on page 3. Continues to say the mother and wife to missing Brian Odhiambo were left in tears yesterday as the court seemed to dash any hopes of the government producing their kin. Elizabeth Ouma and her grandmother-in-law, Alvio Kelo, had gone to court seeking orders for Brian to be produced dead or alive. Odhiambo has been missing since January 18th, with reports he was taken into custody by Kenya Wildlife Service officers. Yesterday, the two, alongside friends and relatives, brought the High Court in Nakuru to a standstill for almost 30 minutes as they protested the ruling by Justice Julius Nangea. In the protest outside Nangea's court, Ouma was overwhelmed with tears and crawled for 20 meters demanding justice for her son. The wife, who refused to speak to anyone because of disappointment, said the court had failed them. The court was set to rule on the application for production of Odhiambo at 11:30 a.m. in the case filed by Auma and Independent Medical Legal Unit. People crowded the courtroom by 9 a.m. However, at around 10:30 a.m., the judge read the ruling with a handful of people in the room, but in the absence of lawyer Mogendi Abuya, lead counsel in the case. Nangea ruled that there was insufficient evidence from Auma and IMLU to prove that Odhiambo was in the custody of KWS or the Directorate of Criminal Investigation. Right? According to Nangea, evidence corroborated by 6 witnesses who allegedly saw KWS officers abduct Odhiambo was not enough to counter of KWS Lake Nakuru National Park Assistant Director David Oyugi. The judge, however, noted that Oyugi was not at the scene of crime, admitted that his officers arrested a man they did not know, but the suspect later escaped. There is a picture there of Carlos Otieno weeping outside the Nakuru Law Court yesterday, moments after High Court Judge Julius Nangea declined to issue further directives on the production of his brother Brian Odhiambo. Because we hope that Brian Odhiambo will be found. Moving on, a legal battle over city parking lot concluded with 107 million payout. And a small stretch of land between Nyayo House and Intercontinental in Nairobi, measuring approximately 0.2 acres or 13 meters, have become a subject of an ongoing legal and financial battle. This area, which has a parking lot, has proven too expensive for both taxpayers and private entities to address, with claims it was once part of an 80-meter road. And Nairobi County Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, that is EACC, its predecessor, the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, along with Kenya Properties Limited, the owners of the Intercontinental Hotel, have all faced substantial financial penalties for attempting to challenge the ownership of this land, which belongs to Willisden Investment Limited. The county admitted it did not own the land and agreed to pay 85 million Kenya shillings in compensation. Meanwhile, Kenya Properties Limited was fined 70 million shillings for trespassing, although this amount was later reduced to 22 million Kenya shillings following an appeal. Environment and Lands Court Judge Oscar Angote has now ruled that the reduced amount must be paid by Kenya Properties Limited, although the judge acknowledged that the Commissioner of Lands had issued wills then with a title indicating that the road was part of their property. He ordered a new survey to be conducted to separate the two areas with a new title to be issued. The judge explained that the initial allotee, Center Park Limited, have represented the Commissioner of Lands to issue a title to Wisden, or a process that was regularized with a payment of 4 million Kenya shillings. Right, moving on, Trump continues with his shocking outburst. And you remember U.S. President Donald Trump withdrew U.S. aid to Kenya, which we have seen politicians saying that it will severely affect the ongoing, or rather the services in the counties, and it will alter many job employments for many. Just about 3 weeks since he was sworn in as the 47th U.S. President, Donald Trump has caused anxiety worldwide with his swift actions even before settles to office follow a pattern of when international relations scholars call for the Madam theory, which was associated with President Richard Nixon. Nixon made outrageous irrational threats to the communist bloc countries to make them believe that he was ready to do anything and would therefore avoid provoking the U.S. In comes Trump with a threat to grab Gaza, take over Panama, and annex Greenland, which his roller coaster of executive orders. He is already stirring controversy at home, in the neighboring countries, and beyond. 187 countries Trump administration is targeted to deport 1,445,549 people from 187 countries, says they are there illegally. Right? You have your people back there. US will be coming back to Kenya. Moving on, lack of political will to blame for DRC war, says Uhuru. And retired president says resolving the Eastern DRC crisis hinges on coordinated efforts between Congo and Rwanda, adding that Nairobi and Luanda peace process offer the best path to stability. And it continues to say, Uhuru, however, says that despite efforts to maintain dialogue, including consultations between him, President Felix Tshisekedi, and DRC and the M23 leadership, the political and security landscape in the DRC is becoming increasingly unstable. The former president says he has urged in his confidence-building measures with various civil rights and women groups and the organization of several high-level conferences to resolve tensions and identify pathways to peace in the region. Uhuru said that the Nairobi peace process initiated by the East African community to address the escalating conflicts and security challenges in the Eastern DRC represents critical diplomatic and military efforts to restore peace and stability in the region. In a statement issued by journalist Bahi spokesperson Kanze Dina at his Nairobi residence, who said that the Nairobi peace process was structured around two elements, which are political dialogue and military intervention. Former president is convinced that the two processes of Luanda and the Nairobi hold the greatest promise for a resolution and termination of crisis in the DRC, with the two processes being complementary and independent, even as the efforts are tried. President William Ruto continued Former President Uhuru Kenyatta, I beg your pardon, continued to say, and I quote, "The recent resurgence of hostilities in eastern Congo highlights the urgent need for renewed political will, regional cooperation, and sustained support for peace." We hope that peace will be established in the DRC and the conflicting counties. All right, it is exactly 10 minutes past the top of the hour. That note, wrap up our newspaper review and the drift this morning. Remember, we'll be keeping tabs with these developing stories, and we'll be bringing you in a subsequent bulletins later on in the day. And that's what we wrap up our program. You've been watching the drift. Many thanks for, of course, keeping me company this particular morning. Fred Njiri will be coming later on with the leadership program. My name is Martin Macharia signing off. Let's meet again at 1 p.m. as we keep you up to speed with what's happening from across the 47 counties and, of course, across the borders. My name is Martin Macharia once again. Good morning.